Keep the embarrassing.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. This is the December 8th meeting of the Design and Project Review Committee. We do have a quorum. Is there a suspension of the rules?
I'll make a motion that we suspend the rules to allow meeting participation either electronically or by telephone.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Michael, please call the roll.
Niden,
Aye.
Schnur,
Aye.
Callahan,
Aye.
Biggs,
Aye.
don't see Ingrid, Tristan,
Aye.
Ingrid is here, Michael.
okay. Hank,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Sterling,
Yes.
Eckersberg.
Aye.
Did I miss anybody?
All right, great. Next, we'll do the meeting minutes of November 17th. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes.
Hey, Mario, can you mute yourself?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, was there a second to that?
Second.
All right, Michael, please call the roll.
Niden,
Aye.
Schnur,
Aye.
Callahan,
Aye.
Biggs, Biggs,
Aye.
Eckersberg,
Aye.
Tristan,
Aye.
Hank,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Sterling.
Abstain.
All right, motion carries.
Thank you. All right, first item of new business, 1560 Sherman Avenue, sign variation. GYH Architects applicant submits for a sign variation to install an internally illuminated sign at a height of 28 feet, 1/2 inch, where 15 feet, 6 inches is allowed. Sign regulation section 4-10-9.h, and an internally illuminated banner with static and moving graphics. The graphic header is considered a commercial variable message sign, which is only allowed to display time and temperature. Sign regulation section 4-10-10D, the Rotary Building in the D3 Downtown Core District. So who will be speaking on the application?
Mark Lowry from Rotary International.
Welcome. Why don't we have the packet that staff reviewed up. So why don't you, if you wouldn't mind speaking to that, we'll scroll. You can ask us to scroll through and we can go that way.
Is it possible that I can share a brief presentation that we prepared?
Sure. I just want to make sure that it's everything that that you sent to the city, right?
Yes, but it's also got some background information about.
Oh
what
yeah,
it's
that's
our-
fine. Yeah, as long
Okay.
as there's not like a different image. So what staff might have reviewed would be
No,
different. So,
no,
okay.
nothing different than the images that you've seen. And I apologize, I keep looking away from the camera because I've got a bigger screen here, so I don't have to put my glasses on.
No worries. Go ahead and
Okay.
you can share your screen.
Thank you. Okay, can you see that? So thank you very much for the time on the schedule today. The thing I wanted to start with is, as background, speaking a little bit about what is Rotary, and then leading that to why we've come to this committee with requests for signage variance in order to help better tell Rotary's story here in Evanston. So if you ask the average person what is Rotary, you will get different answers depending on their experience or their exposure to Rotary. To many here in Evanston, Rotary is one of the top 10 employers. We've got on average 650 full-time and contingent workers here at one Rotary Center at any time. We're, I believe, still the #1 property taxpayer in Evanston. Rotary's been headquartered in Evanston since 1954. The building that is currently Northwestern University's headquarters was constructed by Rotary. And then in 1987, after having outgrown that property, Rotary bought 1560 Sherman Avenue, where it's one of the leading commercial office buildings in downtown Evanston. And many people know Rotary as a collaboration space for the community. Evanston Community Foundation is one of the tenants here. There are many community meetings held either in the meeting rooms or in the auditorium here. Evanston Environmental Association often uses us for their Wild and Scenic Film Festival, but just a few different ways people see Rotary. But Rotary International and the Rotary Foundation are two very long-standing service organizations that have now been headquartered here for over 65 years. Rotary is the oldest and second largest service organization in the world, with currently almost 1.4 million members globally. Those individuals belong to 35,000 local clubs in 221 countries and geographic areas. And although clubs, memberships, and priorities can vary widely, they all share the interest in serving others and being people of action who share ideas, make connections, and create meaningful change in their communities and in the world. And when we say they're creating change and through that service that is provided, Rotary partnered with Johns Hopkins University a couple of years ago to try and put a value on all of that service. And what Johns Hopkins came up with was annually in an average year, Rotary volunteers, the value of their service is nearly $1 billion every year, $850 million, and 47 million hours of service contributed by those members. And service projects totaling 166.2 million were awarded 2021 to 2020 to 2021 in 2,589 different grants. Some people will, if you ask them what is Rotary, know us by our signature global health project or program to eradicate polio. Since 1988, nearly 3 billion children have been immunized against polio by Rotary and its partners. Rotary's contributed over $2.2 billion to global eradication of polio. And it's estimated more than 19 million cases of paralysis that would have otherwise been brought on by polio have been averted through these efforts. And more recently, great number of those personnel and apparatus, the mechanisms in place for polio eradication were shifted to help with COVID-19 surveillance, identification, laboratory facilities, all kinds of activities. But getting back to the Rotarians, the Rotary members, more than 22,000 clubs have participated in COVID service projects, and far more at this point than $22 million have been awarded specifically for COVID grant service. But it's not just global health that Rotary is involved in. All of those $850 million and 47 million hours of service are typically channeled through one of 7 areas of focus that Rotary has. And those are fighting disease like polio and COVID, promoting peace, providing clean water, saving mothers and children, supporting education through basic literacy, growing local economies, and now protecting the environment. So the challenge we have at One Rotary Center is, although, as we determined in 2019 with the Evanston Chamber of Commerce, and a survey was done of Evanston residents and business participants, there's a high awareness and understanding within the Evanston business community of what Rotary is and what it does. And most recently, we've been hosting the Mayor's Economic Recovery Task Force meetings here at the building. But that Chamber of Commerce survey indicated what we intuitively knew, that there was a high awareness of Rotary, again, all over the board in terms of what people think Rotary is, but a low understanding amongst general Evanstonians and non-Rotary visitors and passers-by as to what is happening inside this building that is the headquarters of this large service organization. And so in an effort to help explain what Rotary is, over 10 years ago, we put up exhibits in the lobby facing Sherman and Grove Avenues. And while they're very popular with visitors from the Rotary universe who already know a lot about Rotary, but come to what is affectionately referred to as the mothership, those just seeing the exhibits through the windows hasn't had one of the intended effects, which is to draw the public in, invite them in to participate and learn about Rotary, learn how they can become part of helping solve the world's problems, either locally or globally. And part of that is due to the physical structure of the building, with the large setback and the canopy, typically from the street and even from the sidewalk level. It's hard to really see what's going on behind the glass. And it's very difficult to answer what is Rotary with static text and images. And to many passers-by, it's just an expanse of blank windows. So what we're proposing as the solution to this challenge is using the facade of the building to illustrate what Rotary is and what it does, and invite the public in to learn how anyone and everyone can participate locally or globally in helping solve local community challenges or global challenges. There's many ways people can participate. They don't have to join Rotary to do that, but we invite them in. We're updating these exhibits on the inside of the lobby, and we really want to invite more people in to participate and learn. And we believe it's going to enhance the downtown Evanston local community with added visual value and supporting Evanston values of community building and service to others through these images. And what we're targeting with these new exhibits on the inside and the imagery on the outside, inviting people in to take part in those exhibits, is to increase our visitors to the mothership, the people who already know about Rotary, which are currently on average about 3,000 visitors a year, which add up to 3,000 to 5,000 hotel nights a year, and lots of local retail purchases. But far more than that, we're hoping that it helps the average Evanston resident or employee working at a downtown Evanston business to help increase their understanding of global challenges and how Rotary works to solve them. And again, adding a nonpartisan, secular, non-commercial message of volunteer service and friendship, as well as providing literally public art, an educational opportunity, and further community collaboration. So then we get to the ask and the details of what's been presented to the committee. So the variances we had identified in the application were that on the main building, the particularly the east facade, the combined text signage with the vertical words and the graphic banner across the top of the lobby glass is slightly larger than the allowed 15%. What you identified in your summary of the variance requests, the LED banner does include movement. It's just images, no text, not the temperature and time. There's no text or audio, and those images are intended to be played back at no greater than half real time, so super slow-mo, if you will. And if I could, I'd like to just show what that looks like. Can you see that new screen pop up? No? Okay. I need to stop that and share it again. There we go. Okay. This is an animation rendering of that those images in motion. So if you watch the banner at the top, this is half real time. So if it, say it was a minute of video clip, it would play no less than 2 minutes. And you'll see that there's these graphic color bars and then repeats of the same imagery. It's not a lot of different images. It's just constantly looping through those images. And we would intend that those images may change with different features of different service projects, highlighting different parts of the world, different service priorities, but never would the movement be any faster than this. And the whole intention, again, is to draw attention to the building and to those exhibits and to Rotary, but not create a distraction. It's still set back under the overhang. It's not right out at the street. We think it will achieve the goal of drawing attention without creating a distraction. So I'm going to stop sharing that. Just want to go back quickly to my presentation. I promise we're almost done. Oh. One more time. There we go. Okay. So that's the ask for the moving image. One of the third ask that we had is for the photo mural on the annex portion of the building, the north of the main tower, the dark brown 3-story annex. That has since been assigned to the City Arts Council for review and approval, and we will follow that process for that particular set of images. But we are waiting to pursue that with the City Arts Council until we get the decision about the overall project from this committee. And the last one, again, highlighted in your meeting materials, is the Rotary Light Box. This signage is again on the annex. It won't be seen during the day when the art mural is seen, but as dusk comes and the evening starts, the Rotary sign would be illuminated and intended to be illuminated through probably till about midnight. We would have it set on a timer so it's not lit all night long, but lit into the evening when there's a lot of nighttime traffic, hopefully soon, when people return to somewhat normal in downtown Evanston. But that is a good 10 feet or more above the allowed 15.5 feet. And the reason that we're asking for that is 15 feet or below, It's not going to be very visible at all from the street, and particularly with the sunken garden nature of the space there, as well as there's trees and bushes that if it's at 15 feet or below, most of it, a good portion of it won't be visible.
Can I ask a
And-
question? Where was the measurement of that taken? Was it from the ground floor of the sunken patio or from grade?
No, it should be from grade.
I just was curious where it was
Yeah.
taken.
Yeah, I'm just looking at quickly the application. I believe it was taken at grade.
Yeah, I believe so.
And that's the end of the background, and we really wanted to give a sense of, there's a lot to say about Rotary. We can't say it all, and certainly not in words, to draw people in. So, the old saying of picture is worth 1,000 words. We're trying to use as much imagery as possible to draw attention and invite people in. So with that, I've got some of our technical experts. As you mentioned, Dana Gilberti is here from our architecture firm. We've got our external designers, the LED banner specialist and interactive designer, as well as our exhibit fabricator and signage general contractor. If there's any questions we can answer. I will stop sharing.
All right, so I'll ask a question. Angel, I know you and Gary reviewed this. Did you all think about the illuminated banner sign as potentially as public art at all? Was that discussed?
As the moving sign, no. The CVMS, no, we did not. We only considered the mural as like the large picture as the mural.
So in watching the presentation, I think my suggestion and recommendation would be that these both be considered art, that you work, because you're trying to create, and maybe somebody can disagree with me here, but think about these as one package of something that's a mural, and less as a sign.
Can I ask it? So if that's what, I guess I was confused on what are we looking at? Is it that, I would disagree. I don't think that's a mural. That's an advertisement. I don't see that as art. But are we currently being asked to look at that annex, that huge amount of what I would call advertising on that glazing? Is that something we're reviewing now, or are we saying that that's just?
Well, there's two things that we're being asked to do. There's one is the installation of the internally installed illuminated sign at the high rotary sign.
Mhm.
So that's the first thing. And then my understanding is that the wall of windows on the annex is not part of, that is going to Arts Council, right, Angel?
Yes. So
Right.
we're looking at the illuminated rotary sign and then the CVMS, the movable sign. Those are the two signs that we're looking at. The large sign the mural should be going to Arts Council as a separate review from their committee.
So similar to some of the other buildings, like the main Chicago building that put a mural on the side of their building, we're considering that there's been some other examples of where we've considered those large imagery as art, as public art, and it goes to the Arts Council.
So that's not digital. I was confused what's digital and what isn't. So that's just is like it's an application on the glazing.
I think there's two things that you're talking about. So there's a CVMS, there's a digital moving sign that goes across the top of the glass. And then there's some signage, some writing in that's actually on the glass that was already reviewed and approved, because that's a different sign that they're allowed to have that. So you're only looking at the illuminated rotary sign that's above, that's higher than what it's supposed to be, and the CVMS, the movable signage. You're not looking at any of the standalone signage on the windows.
Okay, can someone from the applicant explain, so that it's not digital on the annex, that's just an applied graphic?
Correct.
Okay,
It's an applied graphic. And for all of that, all of the images, and then the rotary piece is a light up sign.
okay,
Right, and I'm the environmental designer. It's important to note that that sign is internal. It's behind the windows. It is not an external sign. So it's a light box. And then the graphics that are, they're intended to work together. So the graphics that are applied to the window are your standard building vehicle wrap that's, like 30, 50% open. So during the daytime, you see the images, but people can still see out of the building, of course. And then at nighttime, when it's dark enough, then the light boxes of the sign would line up and you would see those while the images are dark. That's the intended effect at the sunken garden. And then the LED motion signage, which also has graphics, it's not all LED. That's in the lobby under the overhang in the 18-story building.
it's on the interior of that curtain wall.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And then can you explain that light box? So those aren't raised. You said that's interior, internal. Can you explain that?
Correct. So that space, that hole is actually open 2
Mhm.
stories on the inside of the building. And so these would actually be light boxes inside the building up to the inside of the glass. So then during the day, because of the graphic on the window, you wouldn't be able to see them and they would be off. And then at a certain point around dusk, they would turn on and you would start to be able to see them through the graphic. And then they would turn, as Mark said, they would turn off at a certain point at night as well.
Okay, that's helpful. And then maybe you explained it, maybe you didn't. The moving graphics on the curtain wall, you said it was, I think, half speed is how you explained it. Can you adjust that? Is that set? Can it be slower?
It could be slower. Typically, that is going to probably be populated with footage from Rotary people doing action all over the world. So some of that stuff will be documentary, and it's possible a lot of times to use an algorithm to slow something down 50%, and it makes that nice sort of silky slow-mo effect. Sometimes we can get away with even more, and sometimes it's a big advantage to do that, because if you can make an 8-second shot 32 seconds, if you can slow it down to 25% rather than 100% of its speed. So part of the look that we would be going for is this very smooth, silky, almost like photographs that are activated with a little bit of motion, but not, that doesn't have a whole lot of camera movement. I would imagine it's going to be a lot of shots of people doing things. Does that
That's
help?
helpful. Is that curtain wall, is that interior space, is that illuminated at night too, or would you plan to not illuminate that and then just so that the graphics stand out more, I guess?
At the annex or at the lobby?
At the lobby.
Mark, I think that stays, go ahead.
So typically it's dimly lit, during the day, and while there's activity in the building, it's all brightly lit. It's been updated over the past summer. But at night, it's basically just a few of the light bars are on, and it's mostly for safety and whatever code requires at that point. So it's partially lit in the evening, but it wouldn't be intended to be bright, like, hey, the display, come look at the displays at night. It's that's really intended for safety in the evening and to not make it stand out too much.
So I've been in the space and it feels very much like I think you're trying to create a museum gallery type space is my, in the year, and I've seen how this space has changed over the years. And so I think, if this is truly going to be depicting images from like photojournalistic quality, but art photography type images, I think, I can support this as an art installation of, some exhibit quality. I
Mhm.
think we can be flexible on that. But I would want to understand, are these images going to be switched out regularly? Or,
It's intended that they can be. It would probably be semi-annually at best. It's not something that would change real frequently, but yes, we would keep them fresh, keep them, so it wasn't the same images for years to come. But yes, it is intended that they would be changed out semi-annually to quarterly.
okay,
No more,
so then,
definitely no
and
more
then
than,
no writing on any of these images. There's no words that would come. It's all images.
correct.
Okay.
One example might be, if we're lucky enough to, for the next 5 years or 10 years to eradicate polio once and for all, it may be less, that may become less of a priority of some image that's up there. But for now, it's central to what Rotary is all about.
Right.
And then did you say this turns off, that these images would turn off at a certain hour? Did you say that the banner of images would turn off?
I suspect it probably would be similar to the timing of the illuminated sign, right, Mark? Does that sound about right?
Yes.
So one recommendation that I would attach to this would be to visit with Bird Friendly Evanston if you have not already done so. They're a group that do a number of things, but one is they often work with developers or people doing things that create light, that could potentially create light pollution that could result in bird strikes or redirecting birds, migrating birds. We are pretty conscientious of creating more light pollution. So the light of the Rotary sign does give me some concern that it is going to add to that overall increase in light in our downtown, which we're trying to decrease.
Okay.
Other
just-
comments or questions?
Are the other monument signs going to remain? Is it still Montessori and your buildings monument?
Yes, the building directory signs would stay as they are.
Other questions or comments?
Just to piggyback on your comment, Johanna, about the lights at night and stuff. We've set requirements for other buildings to have lights turn off at, I think 11. Didn't we do the festoon lights at 11 o'clock? I think it would be important if this goes through to make sure that they're following kind of the same limit, so it's the same for everybody. And we've also asked for dimmer controls on these lighted signs, so that if there's a complaint that comes in, obviously you could still have your sign lit, but that you might have to turn it down so that it's not as bright.
Yeah, both of those requirements would be perfectly satisfactory with us. We'd want to be consistent with what has been decided elsewhere in the area, and we can certainly add the dimmable controls.
Okay, other comments or questions from staff?
The only other thing I have is for, I know you had talked about the CVMS, the movable sign being made in our installation. To my knowledge, we haven't approved any movable signs. So this would be setting a precedent. So I just want to make sure that we understand that as we move forward.
Well, that's why I feel like I want to consider it a photography installation and less advertising of things that are present in storefronts.
I would agree with that assessment. It looks to me like it's more art than advertising. There's no copy. There's no other messaging. So I would agree with the assessment that it's more art than sign.
I mean, you're not conveying something to sell something versus a store that would put a vehicle and driving on a screen, which we've been asked for, or food being displayed to try to entice you to come in and buy food. I mean, short of encourage people to support an organization that's trying to eradicate a horrible disease. I mean, I wouldn't classify that as marketing. I think that's That's it. This is informational, and I think it's a showcase. It's a gallery.
It really is sort of like the Chase Bank displays that we can see from the public, or as kind of lifestyle things. Of course, that's advertising, but it did remind me of those kind of images.
Any other comments or questions?
So we're not voting on so it's art now. So we just have one thing that we're looking at?
That's correct.
Okay. Did you look at decreasing the size of that? Can you explain why it's so large? Is that size compliant with our sign code? That's huge. I find that hard to believe, but.
So
Go ahead.
sorry, go ahead, Peter.
I was going to say that the size really came about from a couple of different things. One was obviously viewing distances. The awning sign's pretty hard to read from a distance. And then looking at it from knowing that we wanted to keep it inside and not on the face and not external, we had to really look at how it would work with the vertical and horizontal, millions of the curtain wall. And from a bunch of different design studies we did, having one letter per column spanning 2 rows worked out the best. So then there's only one horizontal seam in each letter, and that seemed to be the most legible. When we went a lot smaller than that, it sort of started getting a little wonky in terms of the spacing between the characters and things of that nature. So that's really what drove it. It's really a graphic design exercise effectively.
And overall, what I was going to say is that the total size of the sign is, aside from the mural art, the size of the total square footage of the signage is far less than the 15% allowed on that wall.
And when you looked at I think you said it was what, the Chamber of Commerce study, people understood that building was the headquarters, that was the Rotary building. They just didn't understand what you did.
The business community understood that it was the headquarters of Rotary International and had a good understanding of what Rotary did. The general public was aware of Rotary and that somehow the building had something to do with it. They didn't necessarily understand that it was the headquarters. A lot of times, just anecdotally, you will hear people say, oh yeah, the Rotary Club building. Well, coincidentally, 2 of the 3 Evanston Rotary clubs happen to meet in this building, but the international headquarters supports far more than those 2 clubs. So there's a fair amount of confusion or non-clarity by the general public.
Thanks.
So I would like to make a motion for approval with the condition, approval of the sign variance with the condition that we look at bird-friendly compliance.
There's a second?
I would second, as long as we add the dimmer control and the timing.
That is a friendly amendment that I can accept.
Kate, do you have any amendments?
I don't think I have any amendments. I'm not supportive of the sign. I don't really understand the need, and I don't feel like it meets the standards that were outlined for the sign variation.
Okay. All right, well, just ask for an amendment. Okay, it's moved and seconded. Michael, please call the roll.
Iden,
Aye.
Schnur,
Aye.
Cano. I'm sorry, Callahan,
Aye.
Biggs,
Aye.
Eckersberg.
Aye.
I see Ron Papa is in the mute. Okay. Tristan,
Aye.
Hank,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Sterling,
No.
and that's it. Motion carries.
Thank you. All right, next up, 2356 Colfax Terrace. Sarah and Patrick Hillman, property owners, submit for a concept review of major zoning relief for additions to single-family residence that include the front yard setback, rear yard setback, north interior side yard setback, accessory structure, yard location, and height, and may include zoning relief for building lot coverage, impervious surface lot coverage, and other plan elements after final review of the most recent plan smell. Okay, so this is a site that fronts a private street. So what I'd like to do is, if the applicant, this is a concept review, so there's no motion that's going to be taken. This will just be a feedback for the designers and homeowners. And if somebody from that team could walk us through what the proposal is, then we could provide some staff comments back on everything. And then remind me, planning and zoning staff, who has been handling this particular matter as of late?
Melissa and I.
Okay, so then maybe you could just, after the homeowner, designer, architect has gone through, you could just give us a quick review of your zoning analysis results. All right, so Sarah or Patrick or somebody else want to walk us through what the proposal is?
Yeah, I guess we'll start really quick and then we'll hand it off to our architect, who's also our cousin. So nice to meet everybody. I'm Patrick. This is Sarah.
Hi.
My wife and I bought our first home in Evanston maybe like 5 months ago. It was a home that had not been lived in for about 12 years. It was built back in the 1950s, early 1960s, and it's on what we would call a pretty peculiar site. Obviously, it's on Poplar, so we back up to the train tracks. Our property line's also lengthwise on an alley, which I think all of which is peculiar. But you know, there's other homes I'm sure that you folks have seen in Evanston that have that similar issue. Where it gets really challenging and peculiar is when the homes were built on Colfax Terrace way back when. It was a temporary HOA was set up. Developer built the homes. Put a street down the middle of the property lines, and then built a big cul-de-sac at the end, which goes directly on into our property, and then dissolved the HOA, creating a non-public road that dramatically goes into our property line, and opening up all of the homes in our little street there to that alley, to the garbage cans, and to a large street light that's out there. And so we saw the property. You know, I grew up in Rogers Park. My wife didn't grow up too far away. You know, moving to the neighborhood has kind of been like a dream of ours for a long time. And we thought that this was a really kind of cool area. And we thought there was a lot of promise. And so what we're looking to do is honestly pretty simple. My wife and I are expecting our next child. And so we're looking to build on top of the existing sort of general footprint of the home to do a large addition, while maintaining the current design and lines with all of our neighbors, because it's a very weird little part of Evanston. Both our neighbors to the north and also all the way down to the south have all had variations approved so that they can feasibly have a home and still have some room. And so we want to maintain that sort of the line, the fence line and the property line with where our other neighbors are. But we want to be able to have a house that's going to first really sort of keep the openness of the area and allow our neighbors to the south to continue to have a lot of natural light and to be open and sort of welcoming, while also allowing us to have 3 bedrooms so that our kids can have 2 separate rooms. And we're hoping to be able to honestly block off a lot of that light that goes into the neighborhood and a lot of the open views that our neighbors have into the alleyway right now. And so with that, I'm going to throw over to Joe, who can kind of talk through what we're kind of asking for, praying for, and I'll let him kind of answer those questions. But sorry, go ahead, Joe.
So would it be okay if I share a screen of these same materials? Thank you. So regarding the peculiarity, I just thought it might be interesting to start with. Many years ago, our firm did a addition to a home that bordered an alley to the north and a public street to the west. And we did a small addition. We expanded, we added a second floor, just like Patrick's home is intending to do. And we did a little screen and porch to hide some of the alley. And of course, because this was a normal lot, even though it had a long alley and so forth, we did not need any variance whatsoever. And again, relative to the last project, this seems quite minor. Here's a picture of the garbage cans that Patrick mentioned. Here's a picture of a really nice trellis and kind of courtyard patio that the neighbors to the south have. They had to get a variance to put this beautiful little trellis up. And then secondly, if we go to the north, this is the home to the north, and I apologize about the difficulty here, but to the left here, you could see their house is quite close to the setback as well, which in their case is considered a side yard setback. So one of the things when we began to look at this project, the thing that was most odd was the city's documents show the property as if Colfax Terrace was a public way. And so it has the curve cut out of the corner. And so that's how we were preparing to look at the project in the very beginning. However, once we got the survey, so that was back in August that we addressed that. And then when we received the survey, looks like at the end of September, we found out that the survey included the cul-de-sac, and the owner has assured Patrick that there are no encumbrances to that roadway, which appears to be public from if you walk down the street, but actually, according to this survey, is privately owned property.
And
So
Joe,
there's
we also had our attorney go and confirm that on the paperwork too.
So, and then we also noted that there is this 6-foot easement along Poplar Avenue. So with the house being set back 6.6 feet. So that's why we think this is peculiar. I don't know if you think this is peculiar, but like I said, I've been an architect for many years and I've done many projects with and without variances. And this seemed peculiar to me. I'll leave it at that. Just to clarify a little bit about the immediate neighborhood, because of the metro tracks here, this is really kind of a cul-de-sac within a cul-de-sac because there's no kind of through street. Lincoln Street doesn't really go through as well. So we're kind of in this weird pocket. So there's very, very little traffic. Happily, Patrick's not proposing to build a 25-foot tall sign. So when we first looked at this, just like your map shows here, we went in and when you drive down or walk down Colfax Terrace, you have this very expansive view of the alley, which is pretty difficult for the front yards of every neighbor on the street. So, initially, it would have been great to think of occupying this corner, this corner right here. But we knew that would be, at least I knew that zoning wise, that would be quite difficult to occupy that, but that would at least hide the alley. So we did that, so we didn't go there, but we did try to extend this existing building down this way to block some of the alley to the extent that we can. There's a viewpoint on your documents that there's a picture taken from this point right here, looking to the north, looking to the northwest, as it were. That's this picture here. So you could see the exposed alley here. You could see these two primary trees that were very nice elm trees that we're trying to save. And this is the neighbor's house right here. So that's the kind of background on the site. So when we come to this page that you saw previously, whoops. Whoa, sorry about that. Sorry, there we go. We basically are trying to, our intentions were very simple. We didn't think this was a major issue. We saw this as a minor issue. Our goals were just to create a peaceful yard to the east and match and enhance, as Patrick said, the character of the neighborhood. So we thought it would be minor to match the west frontages of the homes and garages and match the alley frontages of homes, ADUs, and garages. So on this alley, there are a number of homes, there are a number of garages, and there's ADUs. So the alley is kind of a mixed community environment, if you will. But we're not asking for lot coverage. Katie told us early on that that's not looked positively upon, so we didn't bother even doing that. So we're not interested in any lot coverage or impervious surface coverage exceptions. We're just looking to build a home that basically hides the alley on the north and matches some of the similar attributes of neighbors on the west. So, but given, it's odd that Colfax Terrace is on the southeast corner, and yet we're in this weird zone because it has to do with how the code determines front, rear, side yards. So we did look through the code thoroughly, and what the code has a determination of the front yard, but it doesn't necessarily say how you determine side yards other than the front yard. The side yard has to be between a front yard and a rear yard, which on this particular property is quite awkward because this cul-de-sac, as you could see, I mean, I think you can accurately see here, it's not a Evanston Public Works curb cut. So that's another indication that it's a privately owned thing, but you could see that this is not really it's the front yard for the addressing. It's the front yard on the cul-de-sac, but it's the backyard because it's so close to the alley. So we're in this kind of fuzzy zone of front and backyard. But so we look through the code, and there's rules of interpretation to be permissive, may, so on and so forth. And so at the end of the day, what we're really just looking for is a variance on the west to accommodate this floor plan. We would like to extend the garage slightly to the north here. And we have a corner of the house that matches the repetitive nature of all these corners of the homes. So we have a corner here, and we'd like to expand the garage a little bit. This is a very old garage. It's quite small. So we'd like to expand the garage. So really it's this, and this, and then we'd like to reduce the setback on the alley to mimic the character of the neighboring garages. Some of them are practically over the property line. Previously we had it closer, but initially, because we were applying for a minor variation, initially we were going to abide by the 35% of a 5-foot setback, which would have been 39 inches. And so we would agree to that as a minor setback. However, in our meeting last week, I think it was, we were told that if we have to go for a major setback, we were told that 2 or 3 feet, it really doesn't matter. if the setback is 2 or 3 feet. And so we would like to have as small a possible setback on basically this area here is most important by the dining room den area. And then at the bicycle storage area, which is kind of used to hide the alley from the rest of the front yards. So basically that's all we're asking for is a minimal setback to match the garages on the alley in these 2 locations. It's not going to be a continuous wall, which would be much more of a significant impact. We're just doing it in 2 small locations. The garage setback is more than 5 feet. And basically we're just mimicking kind of the existing building is shown in red. We're mimicking and keeping some of the existing building, and we're opening up a yard to the east. So I think it's pretty simple. That's what we're asking for. And given the kind of idea that the front of the house is here, off here, and the rear of the house is obviously where you enter the garage, it seemed like we could call Poplar Street a side yard because the neighbor to the north, that is their side yard. They have a side yard. So we don't know what the right way to accomplish this is, but we've gone through the code and looked at it in many ways. And so this is what we're asking for. And we're actually looking for some help from all of you to see what seems reasonable.
All right, so let's start with Melissa Klotz, our zoning administrator, who is the person who interprets our code for us. So Melissa, why don't you walk through how staff reviewed this and determined non-compliant?
Sure. So just to preface with, we did receive these current revised plans last week, and we have not done a full updated zoning analysis. So we don't necessarily have exact numbers on everything. But as a starting point, to point out that it is a peculiar lot. It is a through lot. It has 2 street frontages. Per the zoning ordinance, we consider Colfax to be the front yard and Poplar to be the rear yard, since it has been established as a rear yard for the rest of the block on that side of the street. Given that, that means that both the existing house and as proposed, a major variation is triggered for the rear yard setback. And that variation is appropriate. There really isn't any way around that. The requirement for a rear yard setback is 30 feet. So that variation is appropriate. In the front yard, the required setback is the block average on that side of the street and taken from the actual property line, which is in the middle of the cul-de-sac. Given that average setback, it's also appropriate for a variation on that frontage. Staff suggests following that 15-foot building setback line that's shown on the plat of survey. That is not the city required setback line, but that is what the rest of the houses on that side of the street are at. And so we are recommending that. As proposed, the bike room and especially the overhang on I believe on the second story of the bike room, that hangs substantially closer than that 15-foot setback line, which is noted as 15 feet from the public sidewalk. So we do recommend that that gets pushed back.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
I understand the setback being relative to a public way, but if this is not a public way, why should that impact this if this is all private land and even the canopy is set back 30 feet from the property line? So it has to do with is this a public way and does the setback rules apply if it's not a public street?
From a zoning perspective, the intent of the front yard setback is to provide open space, visibility, and safe pedestrian activity. Being that there is a sidewalk there, not necessarily a public sidewalk and not a public street, but the public does use it. I think that this is a good opportunity for where a variance is appropriate, but following roughly the same thing that the neighborhood has, which is that 15-foot line. trying to just move forward quickly since I think we're running out of time. The north interior side property line that abuts the alley, a 5-foot setback is required there. Staff does not feel that it's appropriate to get any closer to that alley property line. It's not necessary. The lot is oversized and larger in width than typical. I believe it's a 60-foot lot width. So we just don't feel that it's necessary to get any closer to the alley. And in doing so, that might create issues for plowing or alley maintenance in the future, as well as accessing that garage. That would be a tight turn as you get closer and closer to that alley.
Can I, again, I apologize. It sounds like it's confrontational. I don't mean it to be, but the garage is set back more than 5 feet because of the turning radius. The bicycle room is the bicycle room. It's not a garage, so there's no turning radius there. And there's plenty of room for snow and so forth where this tree is located. Again, it's not a continuous wall. And regarding the idea that this is a large lot is not consistent with all of the neighbors to the north. Their lots are much, much larger. Their yards are much, much larger. So we actually have a very small yard. Our yard is roughly less than 30 feet wide, approximately 30 feet wide. Their yards are 50 feet wide and much, much deeper. So I think it's not fair to call this an oversized lot when it is actually at the minimum of the lot size for this zone.
To clarify, it is in the R1 zoning district where the minimum lot size is 7,200 square feet. This lot, I believe, is over 9,000 square feet.
Right,
and the
but that
minimum lot,
includes the cul-de-sac.
and the minimum lot width is 35 feet, and I believe this lot is 60 feet in width. Just to wrap up the last of the zoning issues, in the previous plan, there was noted that there was a chimney in the front yard. It's now shown as a fireplace, so we will need some clarification on that. And if you could clarify the height and the wall with that, because from a zoning perspective, what we are looking at is an accessory structure in the front yard, which does trigger a variation. And depending on what you're doing, it might be appropriate. If it is a 35-foot tall chimney, as was previously discussed, even when it's connected by a wall, that's not considered part of the principal structure, and that's not an appropriate variation in that respect. Just some final comments. The building lot coverage, just hang on one second and I'll wrap up. The building lot coverage and impervious, again, being that it is a compliant lot, you should comply with those. The official numbers are the city numbers, so we do need to make sure that we are all on the same page with those, which we haven't been so far, but we will get there. And then just one final comment is if you can address if you're removing any mature trees from the plan that you have now.
Okay, so again, to comment on the chimney is for the fireplace. And we saw your note last week and we have no problem keeping the height limit to 20 feet or below. So we can, those kind of details, we're trying to comply with everything, of course. Yeah, we have no problem reducing the height of that chimney to 20 feet or less. So that's that answer.
Joe, can I ask
Sure.
a weird question really quick? The 60 feet, is that the distance from the alley to, when we say this, the width of 60 feet, is that the distance from the alley to our neighbor's house to the south? Or is that the distance from Poplar to our property line going east-west?
Your lot width is north to south.
Property line to property line.
Property on the property line. So alley to property line. Okay. And on the variance in the alley, like, I let you guys talk about the code, but for us, it's just pretty easy. It's 6 feet of space that's just being used for weeds right now. And there's a fence that's there that's sitting on that line. And so it's empty space that just frankly, we could really use for our family, because even though it seems like it's a big, massive space there, when you look at it, it's really not, because we have that cul-de-sac that goes right into the middle of our property. So for actual space for kids to be able to go and like play and get out, it's actually much smaller than it looks. And so, you know, to both be able to have a house that we want to have the square footage, so you'll have a family of 4 living there without having to get that much closer to our neighbors and reduce light and make it feel that we're getting closer to their property line than we need to. It's just be really helpful for us to be able to use that space right now that's in the alley that's completely unusable to allow for a higher livability condition for us, for our neighbors, just in general.
And we have such a long property line along the alley, so long, it's a lot of alley. And so when Joe says it's not a continuous line, a huge part of the part that isn't continuous is for green space, specifically for just for having that to look at, so we're not just looking at alley and just general, you know, to be kind of nice. So I don't know, just thought that might help.
So we have about 5 minutes left. Do our colleagues in Public Works have any comments on the site, on the concept plan?
So, I understand your concern about the way that the property's been laid out and that you feel it's inappropriate to put Colfax Terrace Street into your lot, but that is the way that the lot is laid out. And we do not allow variances for building lot coverage or impervious surface on new construction.
Correct. We have no problem with that whatsoever. Zero problems. That's fine. We understand that completely.
Yeah, we know there's flooding issues, so we get it.
Okay, so personally, you know, I'm looking at page 47 of the packet, which
Mhm.
just shows the tremendous area that you have blocked out for building and porch and pavement and everything else. And I realize it's an oddly shaped lot, but it's actually a pretty large lot. And what I'm hearing from you is a lot of talk about this strong desire to shield the alley view from your yard. And it is unfortunate that you have purchased a lot where the length of the alley goes along the entire side yard of the building, because that does make that more of a challenge. But you are encapsulating a lot of ground here. And one of the concerns that we have with that setback is that when things are close to the alley, they are, it's not just the visual view, there are moving vehicles in the alley that don't always stick to where they're supposed to be in the alley for a variety of reasons, which you can all imagine. So having that grace area where your dining room is not located 3 feet from the edge of the alley benefits you. It's really quite a risky thing to put things right up against the alley, particularly living spaces. So I really would encourage you to stay away from, to honor the 5-foot setback. It's really in your best interest in the long term.
May I respond to that? I mean, ADUs have become very, very popular. And many ADUs are on smaller setbacks than the 3 feet that we're asking for. And those are full living spaces. So the code, the comprehensive plan, is encouraging the use of ADUs, which are sitting closer than 3 feet to the property line on alleys throughout Evanston. In addition, on this particular alley, which is only 2 blocks long, there's very little traffic on it. It's gravel, actually. It's even unpaved. There's numerous houses on the alley. So and again, lot coverage, we have no problem with. We will completely comply with that. So that's not an issue.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, yeah. I
All right,
mean,
any other staff comments? Because we're definitely running out of time. I want to get the applicants enough feedback from staff, since we don't.
I have a question regarding the south property line. There's a row of trees there. Those on your property or those to the neighbors?
As close as we could tell, they're right on the property line. So this kind of dovetails nicely with the previous question of, are we planning to take down any mature trees? The two nicest trees are these two elms that are indicated on the drawings. There is a, I don't know how else to call it, but a bastardized tree. There's a tree that's been cut at about 15 feet high and it's falling apart. And that's in the kind of center of the lot. So that one will be taken down. The tree that's in the very front on the northwest corner, that tree can stay. It's in that triangular garden to the west of the garage. So technically it can stay. It's leaning. It doesn't look like a great tree, so it might come down. And then just as an FYI, recently, there was a large tree that was taken down right at the southwest corner. So,
Okay.
Not
But
by
other-
us, for the record. Yeah.
My concern is that if it's joint ownership trees on the south side, some sort of discussion with that property owner on their goals regarding those trees and if they're wanting them to stay or be preserved, since they are property of both parties. So they want to take that consideration.
We have a really good relationship with our neighbor. We've been talking with them and have had dinner with them several times, and we wouldn't do anything without their approval on everything too.
I can also say that given that row of trees on the south property line, we are not proposing to put a fence on that property line. Instead, the entire project, and this goes back to the narrowness of this or the size of the site, whether it's large or small, but because of that row of trees, there's no fence on the property line. We've moved everything 5 foot back. So we're kind of, to speak to Patrick's point, we're trying to give more airspace to the neighbors by just putting the house, the wall, the chimney, everything is 5 foot in. So there's no fence whatsoever on that property line, just that row of trees.
And I'm looking forward to planting some really nice trees also in what is considered the backyard, but along Poplar. So I don't know if that matters, but.
Thank you.
I'm the neighbor. May I speak? Robert Stevens.
Please.
Well, Mr. Stevens, we only have a couple minutes, so please, if you could keep your comments quick and short, that would be great, because I want to make sure there's not another staff member that wants to give
I am
feedback.
the neighbor immediately to the south, and I am delighted with the prospect of this house being restored. And the plans look wonderful, and our attitude about the trees, I think, is consistent with what has been expressed. And we look forward to having these folks as neighbors and to the improvements on the property as they're proposed. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Thanks, Bob.
All right, any other staff comments? Otherwise, we will adjourn. Anyone else?
I would let, I think it's kind of unfortunate that we ran out of time, because I would have liked to have a longer discussion about this, but I actually think that much of what he's proposing is a relatively ingenious design solution in service of his client. I really, especially the series of kind of outdoor rooms along the alley, the modulation along the alley. To me, a 3 foot setback is the same that the garages would have, and that modulation of the structure, it's like a series of garages along the alley. I guess, I'd look forward to having a longer conversation when they come in for the major variation, but I think that really the key here is just looking at when you're requesting the variation, just demonstrating what the need is and what the hardship is. Obviously, there's a hardship related to the lot, the characteristics of the lot. And I think with some small tweaks and changes, I think this would be at least a proposal that I could support.
Thank you. And Cade, why don't you put your information in the share with the applicant? And actually, I think I turned the chat off. I might turn the chat off. If I think your comments and feedback might be helpful with your colleagues in their work on this project. Okay, any other comments? Otherwise, we have I know we have another, many of us have another meeting we have to get to. All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, thanks, everybody.
Thanks, folks.